Republicans in Congress are ramping up their attacks on abortion, quite literally in this case, because what they are proposing is repealing the act which protects abortion clinics from violent pro-lifers. Jezebel reported that Representative Chip Roy introduced HR 5577 on Tuesday, along with 25 other Republicans, to repeal the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, the FACE Act. Senator Mike Lee, one of the few senators to support Senator Tommy Tuberville's months-long anti-abortion crusade in the Senate, says he plans to introduce companion legislation in the upper chamber. So if you're unfamiliar with the FACE Act, let's just lay out a little bit about what it is, what it does. The FACE Act makes it illegal to use force, obstruction, and property damage intended to interfere with reproductive health care services, according to the Department of Justice. The law was passed in 1994 after clinics had been facing invasions, trespassing, and vandalism, as well as bomb threats and actual bombings for decades. And the year that it was passed is significant, 1994, because in that year alone, 4 people were murdered. 2 abortion providers, a clinic volunteer, and a receptionist were murdered. And since abortion was legalized, 11 abortion providers have been murdered by supposedly pro-life protesters. Speaking of pro-life protesters, let's talk about Lauren Handy. Someone who you might remember as the lady who had aborted fetuses in her fridge. Now, she was recently sentenced, and that was one of the impetuses for introducing this piece of legislation. Let's go to this from Jezebel. Attorneys for anti-abortion activist Lauren Handy, whose conviction is one of Roy's reasons for reintroducing the legislation, told the right-wing Washington Examiner that they plan to argue that the FACE Act is actually a state issue, not a federal one, after the Dobbs Supreme Court decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, despite the fact that, in my legal opinion, that ruling has absolutely no value on whether or not the FACE Act is a valid piece of legislation. But so I mentioned that Handy was just sentenced. It wasn't actually for the fridge fetus scandal. It was for when her and a bunch of other members of a anti-abortion group, she first made an appointment with Planned Parenthood to get an abortion. That was a farce. These activists stormed the Planned Parenthood and blockaded it. And to the point where they had to use special tools to gain entrance to the law enforcement did to gain entrance to this Planned Parenthood again. Let's go some more from what they're saying about her. Since the Dobbs decision that reversed Roe, there's a very serious question about whether the federal government has any further interest in the abortion issue. Pause. It's not even about the abortion issue. We'll just stop there and I'll bring you in, Brett. It's not about the abortion issue. It's about not allowing this sort of right-wing violence at places of business. Regardless, it's because they are abortion clinics that they are targeted with the violence. It's not that they're being protected more so because they're, they are abortion clinics. It's because they need to be protected from rabid right-wing protesters who were firebombing abortion clinics, that were murdering abortion providers. The government's interest in protecting doctors has not changed at all. So the idea that the reversal of Roe would somehow also mean that we should embrace right-wing violence is absurd, and it is a unfounded legal argument.
Yeah, it's so weird. They're saying because Dobbs made it possible to outlaw abortion. It hasn't really happened when you ask anyone in the states. They said the states needed to have rights about. You ask the individuals in a referendum, all those states are like, actually, no, we want to keep abortion legal. So that's the first farce. The second farce is because it's possible that you could make abortion illegal in these states, now it should be legal to firebomb abortion clinics? Now you shouldn't have heightened, you shouldn't have a specific law focusing on how it should be illegal to do that? No, that's BS. It should still always already be illegal to do that. And yes, I'm sure you would get some kind of disruption of property thing, but I hear Republicans all the time say, we need, when there's a certain kind of crime that keeps on happening, we need a more specific law to have harsher penalties for that crime so that we dissuade people from committing the crime. This is that. And every time you hear states' rights from a Republican, that's absolute BS. They just want what they want, when they want, how they want. They use states' rights when it favors them, and they use federal overreach explicitly, like as an asset, as part of their strategy to use federal overreach when it benefits them to get what they want. So that's all BS. We should leave the FACE Act. It is stupid on its face, and if we repeal it, we'd have egg on our face.
And there's some there's some irony here, because these people who are arguing that the federal government has no interest in, heightened security around these abortion clinics are the same people making the argument that we should have a federal ban on abortion. So the government does have an interest when it comes to banning all abortions. Then the federal government can step in and say that. But if the federal government wants to protect people getting legal medical care, then we need to, remove them. Then that's big government overreach. Then that's tyrannical. It's absurd.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.